Hey Yichin, what are you up to? Oh, I'm checking for the exchange rate for US dollar. I'll be going on an exchange program to US next semester. I need to plan my finances. But why don't you use Cash Changer website? I think it's quite handy for you to capture the real-time exchange rate, and you also can get an idea about how much for your saving is worth in US dollar. Good idea, Jiaqi. I've been counting my savings to cover tuition and living expenses in the US. It is a bit overwhelming. Okay, let me see how Malaysian ringgit is doing against the US dollar. It's crucial to you to plan ahead, especially with the fluctuation in exchange rate. I can't believe it. My 1 month part-time salary can only be exchanged for 100 US dollars. 8 years ago, I could get over 200 US dollars for the same amount. The Malaysian ringgit exchange rate to US dollar has been increasing yearly. It's affecting the value of our currency. Let me check something real quick. Look at this article, Yichin. It explains how various factors influence exchange rate. GDP, work money, export and import all play a role. I never realized how much these factors could impact the value of our money. It's a complex system, but understanding it can help us make informed decisions, especially when we are dealing with the currency exchanges.
What is an exchange rate? An exchange rate is a rate at which one currency will be exchanged for another currency and affects trade and the movement of money between countries. What is gross domestic product? The GDP of a country is a representation of the dollar value of goods and services that have been produced within that country, generally over the span of 1 year. The GDP may also be thought as the basic size of the country's economy. Changes in the GDP reveal changes in economic growth and can directly impact the relative value of a country's currency. A high GDP reflects larger production rates, an indication of greater demand for that country's products. An increase in demand for a country's goods and services often translates into increased demand for the country's currency, causing the exchange rate to increase. What is broad money? Broad money is a category for measuring the amount of money circulating in an economy. It is defined as the most inclusive method of calculating a given country's money supply and includes narrow money along with other assets that can be easily converted into cash to buy goods and services. Given the price level PUS and real income YUS, an increase in the money supply from M1 to M2 reduces dollar interest rate and the money market equilibrium is re-established at point 2. As a result, the dollar depreciates against the euro and the foreign exchange market equilibrium is re-established as point 2 prime.
Alright, let's talk about what is export. Export are goods and services that produced in one country and sold to buyers in another country. If a country exports more than its import, it's also known as trade surplus, so there is a high demand for its goods and thus for its currency. The economics of supply and demand dictate that when the demand is high, prices will rise and the currency appreciates in value. Next, let's talk about what is import. An import is a good or service bought in one country that were produced in another. If a country imports more than its export, there is relatively less demand for its currency, so prices should decline. In the case of currency, it depreciates or lost the value.
Wow, Yichin, look at this. It's the perfect thing I have been wanting for ages. It's on Amazon and the reviews are fantastic. That does look great, but how does it connect to our discussion about this? Well, imports play a significant role in shaping the exchange rate. When we buy products from other countries like this from US, it affects the demand and supply of the currency. So buying things from other countries influences how much our currency is worth? Exactly. Increased import can lead to increase in demand for foreign currency, affecting the exchange rate. It's crucial aspect to consider, not just for personal purchases, but on a larger economic scale. I'm starting to see how imports can affect our currency value. But what about export? How does they fit into the future? Great question, Nichin. Now, when our country export goods to other nations, it works in the opposite direction. We receive payment in foreign currency, increasing the demand for our country currency.
So now we have import and export. But what about broad money? How does it tie that into exchange rate?
Based on our research area, we have found that the GDP and world money both have positive relationship to the exchange rate.
I'm not entirely sure if our estimates are accurate based on the research we have done. It seems quite complex.
Don't worry, Ichin. I know someone who can help us to understand this better. Mr. Ko, an economic expert. He can provide insights and guide us through the intricacy of this relationship.
Today, I'm inviting our economic expert, Mr. Ko, to help us analyze and investigate about this topic. Hi, Mr. Ko. I'm Li Jiaqi. Recently, my partner and I are troubled with the problem of exchange rate, and we found that GDP, broad money, export and import have the impact to exchange rate. So we are troubled with this problem. So can you show us that the effect of GDP, broad money, export and import to the exchange rate to us?
Hi Miss Lee. Actually, I already obtained the data from the World Bank, which is the GDP, broad money, export, import, and the exchange rate for 10 years. So after I collect them, I just throw in the views and run them to get the coefficients. And I found that the coefficient I get is it's not rational because it's too small. It's E negative 12. So to solve this problem, I log my independent variable. So after I log them, I get a quite nice coefficient which is not too small or too big. So we can form our regression model at here the harder one here. And in this lean log functional form, the coefficient can be interpreted in this way. So we interpret the beta 1 and beta 3 first. When there is a 1% increase in the GDP and the import, it is associated on average with an increase in the exchange rate of 0.10691619 and 0.40242 respectively. And next for the beta 2 and beta 4, when there is a 1% increase in the export and broad money, it is associated on average with a decrease in the exchange rate of 0.08012 and 0.08289 respectively. So after we get the coefficient, we can try to test them whether there is significant or not. So to test them, we let our hash now to become the coefficient becomes 0, and against the alternative not equal to 0. So based on the p-value here, we can say that the GDP is significant, the export and the broad money is significant because the p-value is less than 0.05, and only the import is not significant because it is greater than 0.05 Okay, so it's still okay And to test the overall significance of the regression, we can try to use the f-test. The null hypothesis is all the coefficient equal to 0, and against the alternative not at all slope coefficient are simultaneously 0. So for this one, we look at the f-test Okay, since our p-value for f-test is 0.0307, which is smaller than 5% significant level, hence it is significant and we reject the null hypothesis So we can conclude that not at all slope coefficients are simultaneously 0. Also means that the regression model is overall significant. It is very good. And the R square, okay, so our R square is 0.9760, means that 97.6% variation of the exchange rate can be explained by the independent variable, which is GDP, export, import, but money. Besides, the remaining 2.4% is explained by other variables. And now we change to the adjusted R square. Based on the theory and formula, the adjusted R square will be lower than the R square. However, the adjusted R square in this model is 0.9568, which is very good because 95.68% variation in the exchange rate is explained in this regression model, and only 4.32% is explained by other variables. Okay, so now we can try to do the diagnostic test to test whether this model is the best linear unbiased estimator blue. So we need to run some diagnostic tests. The first one, we will run the VIF. We use the VIF to test the multi-collinearity problem in the regression model. So since we success to run the VIF, so there is no perfect multi-collinearity in this model. And because we look at the center VIF, all of the independent variable is more than 5. So we can say there is a high multicollinearity among those independent variables. Okay, so in this case, right, the OS estimator can be obtained and it is still blue, but the estimator of the OS may be imprecise because of the large variance and standard error. So now we do the other test, which is Darwin-Watson t-test. We use the Darwin-Watson t-test to test whether there is the autocorrelation in the error term. We set the null hypothesis is t equal to 0, which no first order autocorrelation against the alternative have first order autocorrelations. So this is our decision rule. Okay, to find the critical value of the Darwin-Watson t-test, we can refer to the below table at n equal to k and k equal to 4, which is the k is the independent variable. So we find that our DL is 0.376, our DU is 2.414. So our test significance, right, is fall between these two terms. So okay, we can say that it is fall into the indecision region because DL is fall between the DL and DU. Okay, based on our decision rule at here. Okay, so we cannot conclude whether it has autocorrelation or not at a 5% significant level. Okay, so we do a further test, which is the element test lah. Okay, same things, we set the null and the alternative. Okay, so we can just based on the p-value at here. Okay, since the element test p-value is greater than 5% significant level, thus it is not significant, and we do not reject the null hypothesis. It means that okay, we can conclude there is no autocorrelation in this regression model at 5% significant level, which also means it is blue lah. And next we run the Birch-Bergan-Goffey test, which is the BPG test, and the null hypothesis is not no heteroscedasticity, and against the alternative is heteroscedasticity. And we look at the p-value is 0.9780. So since the PBG test statistic is greater than, the p-value is greater than the significant level for the 5%, right? So it is not significant, and we do not reject the null hypothesis. So we can conclude that is no heteroscedasticity in the error term. And next we look at the Jabra test lah. This test is to test the normality of the residual. So the null hypothesis is the residual are normally distributed against the alternative residual are not normally distributed. So look at the probability here, it means the p-value, right? So because the p-value is greater than 5% significant level, thus it is not significant, and we do not reject the null hypothesis. Okay, it means that we can conclude the residual is normally distributed. Okay, so it's good. So it's a good sign. And the last one, we test the Ramsey reset test. Okay, we use the Ramsey reset test to test the permitted variables and the incorrect functional form. So we set the null hypothesis equal to the model is not misspecified versus the model is misspecified. So same things, we look at the p-value here. Okay, for the statistic one, the p-value. Okay, so the F statistic of the Ramsey reset test is great. The p-value is greater than 5% or so. So we can conclude it is not significant. We do not reject the null hypothesis, and the regression model is not misspecified. So it's very good lah. So our conclusion will be, here. Okay, since the model has passed all the diagnostic tests, right? So we can say it is blue. But although it is blue, the estimator of the OS may be imprecise because of the large variance and standard error due to the VRF is greater than 5. So I think it happens because the export and import are elements of the GDP, so there might be overlap in our independent variables, and the observation might be too few because we only have 10, right? So to overcome this problem, I suggest that we can increase the observation to 30 or more, or we just try to drop the import because drop this independent variable because it is not significant like here. Yeah, I think that's all for me.
Okay, alright. Thank you for your comprehensive explanation on this model. And also congratulations to you because of fulfill the blue in your model. See you soon. Bye.